Entrepreneur Show. I'm really happy to have you as my guest today. And thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Hi Ranjani, it's glad to be here and it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for calling me over.
Yeah. I know you have had a very busy week, and we are kind of having this episode at the end of the week. So no, we will have a great conversation, definitely. Before we run into the topic, it's a very interesting topic. And you are bringing a new perspective around leadership and
Mhm.
workplace culture. So before we get into that, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us where are you joining from, a little bit about your background and experience.
Um, well, I don't know. I usually introduce myself as an entrepreneur by spirit and a runner at heart. So I like to run, and I also like to be entrepreneurial, right? So I'm a mechanical engineer by educational qualification, but grew into leadership and training, coaching, and development with the MBA and the psychology, etc., and quite a few other certifications as a coach, certified team coach. And about the last 27 years, I've been doing learning and development, coaching, and training, as well as certain keynote speeches, etc., for different organizations and in different events. I have a small e-learning company, LearnSprint Private Limited, a few e-learning courses, and a YouTube channel where I try to share what I know. And that's a little bit about me. Written two short books. One is a collection of quotations that I call Unlock, and one is short spate articles or bites that will really help. So these I think are what I have professionally. Hobbies wise, I love books, as you can see. Um, but that's the real background, by the way. People ask me whether that's real or virtual. That's the first question I get, and the second question I get is, do you really read all those books? Are they just there for show, right? And I also like to run, so that's a few 10K medals out over there. I'm a part of the Hyderabad Marathon organizing team over here, and also very embedded into philanthropy. We have a family foundation. I work with Youth for Seva on their advisory board, right? I live in Hyderabad. That's why the Hyderabad Marathon core team. Born and brought up in Sriharikota, which is ISRO's rocket launching center, but then work took me to Hyderabad, then Bangalore, US, Hyderabad, and right now this is home, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a little bit about me personally, professionally. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why the word sprint in your company, right? No? Yeah. You
The
have a
word
love for
sprint is actually, I believe that learning has to be agile like everything else. You got to learn, go, implement, experiment, try it. Then you got to come back and you got to learn. You just can't keep doing weeks and weeks of courses, which is why it's learn sprint, short bursts of
Hmm.
energy. Yeah.
Wonderful. So you could give us a glimpse of a lot of things in this 2, 3 minutes. And looking forward to this conversation. So let me start with the leadership and growth mindset. Having worked with almost 3 decades now and in different countries, what leadership shift do you believe is most critical today?
Um, I think no matter how many years of experience a manager or a leader has, one thing I've found them always struggle with every time we have coaching conversations. And I've led teams, maybe not huge teams, but I've led teams of 5, 7, 10 when I've been in my mechanical engineering career. And I've seen the same thing with a lot of leaders is so used to being the subject matter expert, right? So used to being somebody who can do things hands on, that to move from being an expert and a doer to becoming an enabler, where it's no longer about jumping in and
And
solving
doing
the
it.
crisis and doing what you're supposed to do, but it's about enabling your team to actually be able to do it. And that requires actually as a leader to take a step back, right? And let their team make mistakes, let them fumble, not of course too many drastic mistakes, step in when you have to, but give them that little bit of a long thread so they can actually learn. And I found that as one of the most difficult things. Of course, as maybe the number of years of leadership goes by, right? Probably they start getting used to it. Everybody finds their own way.
Hmm.
Uh, Still, I've seen the second thing I've seen a lot of leaders not do is they become bottlenecks for decisions. You know,
Hmm.
so any big decision to make, Acha, let me go and ask him what does he think, right? Or let me go and ask her what does she think.
Hmm.
But creating that, but of course, that doesn't also mean that you just tell your team saying, "Hey, up to you guys, you decide." Because obviously they might make drastic decisions that might change the whole course, the whole naksha of the project, right? So I think it's a, but you have to build that decision making capability, you know, in your teams, right? So somewhere I think these two are two shifts that I see that are extremely essential. Let go, don't be so hands on, kind of don't be hovering. I think we call it micromanagement. I think we call it too much of follow up, but I think it comes more from a space of just being habituated to doing things yourself. And that's a big shift that needs to happen. And the more that you help your team learn how to make the appropriate decisions, the appropriate dynamic decisions, then the less their dependency on you. I've done a lot of leadership workshops where people are constantly on calls. I said, half a day, if your team can't get along with the regular day to day tasks without pinging you on the phone, then you're not doing something right. You can't become the bottleneck. That if you're not available, they can't make decisions. So, somewhere I think these two are two parts that leaders need to kind of focus on. Yeah.
Very important points, Revathi. I remember having this conversation yesterday on a live stream,
Ah,
and we were talking about business growth and how and the smart people or good businesses stay stuck. So I think the speaker highlighted these 2 points, and very clearly in a 1 hour session we were coming back to different points. Like the founder is not ready to like in a business, it's the founder who is leading and they want to put their nose in everything. They don't want even their children if they want to take on the next level leadership. Uh, they can't do without their permission. So there
their
are
baby, right? It's their baby. That's why. It's not because they don't trust, but it's their baby. That let go becomes very important. It's not
yeah.
easy. Yeah.
So there are many aspects to this. It's not like it's not linear. There are many things, dynamics around why people do this way. Okay, but anyway, it was interesting to circle back today again on the same points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on, I would like to further talk about the organization, and when it comes to growth mindset, what does it actually look like in a day-to-day leadership behavior?
Uh, growth mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so growth mindset, most people look at growth mindset as I believe that we can grow, right? Um, but I think if you actually look at Carol Dweck and if you watch Carol Dweck's TED Talk, or if you actually read the book, in fact, her TED Talk is titled as The Power of Yet. Right. Okay. We say the growth mindset is you say, I have not achieved this yet. So, matlab, there is still a potential and a capability. And a lot of times when we look at the definition of growth mindset, we talk about it as being open to learning, being open to taking on challenges. And most leaders, most people say, of course, I take on challenges. Of course, I'm open to learning. But the thing is that we take on challenges in the areas that we think we are comfortable. For
Hmm.
example, up until probably 8 years back, I've never exercised all my life, right? And about 8 years back, I started off and I always told myself, I'm not good at it. I'm not good at workouts. I can't do that. I used to have a great learning and growth mindset on everything else, but this I would say, like, nah, this is not my cup of tea. I
Hmm.
started it off, and then with social support, peer support, I kind of started realizing, oh, it's actually doable. It's just that I chose to have a fixed mindset in this area. So we
Hmm.
think we have a growth mindset in general, but in certain areas we really don't. And so that's a check that leaders need to ask themselves, right? It's not about in general do I have a growth mindset, but watch yourself in scenarios and see where the fixed mindset comes up automatically in a very reactive mode, right?
Hmm.
I think two areas that I think on a day-to-day leadership behavior, or two areas where it just becomes obvious to team members. Are they actually demonstrating growth mindset? Right?
Hmm.
One area I think is that when something goes wrong. Okay,
Hmm.
when a mistake happens. I mean, I asked so many leaders that, oh my God, this went wrong, and I asked them, so what was your first statement when it went wrong. And they say, like, obviously, we wanted to ask, like, why? Why did this happen? What happened? Who did what, right? Because you want to do an analysis of that, okay? I
Mm,
mean, nobody asked the first question as, what can we really learn? Right.
mm,
And the moment you start with that defensive, why did this happen? Or the blame, like who did it? Even if the intention is not blame, it sets the tone for the conversation. Uske baad, even if you ask people like, what did you learn? They're like, silence, right? Very much silence. So how do you actually react when mistakes happen? If we ask everybody when mistake, any leader, when a mistake happens, okay, are you positive towards your team? They'll say, yeah, sure. But you ask the team the last time that you guys made a mistake, how did your leader react? You might
mm.
get a very different answer. So, that I think if you actually reflect, you will know how you are demonstrating growth mindset. And I think a second area, which is a very dicey area for a lot of leaders, no matter how many years of experience we have, is how they ask or take feedback. Not give feedback, but about asking and receiving, taking feedback.
Hmm.
We all like to believe that we are open ended and willing to listen and we will not react emotionally. But when we are told something, it does pull out. There is an emotional impact, right? Now, how do you regulate that and how do you respond? Because it's not about you as a leader in that moment. The way you respond when your team member gives you feedback will tell the team member how psychologically safe it is for them to speak up,
Yeah.
right? And you may go about tooting your horn all over saying, I have an open door policy, you can come talk to me anytime, you can share anything with me. But any reaction that you show when they actually come and say something, and then if that reaction does not align with everything that you've said, the next time they'll just not do that, because not that they may disbelieve you, but they will believe in how you have shown that reaction rather than what you're saying. So I think these are two areas if leaders can actually, uh, consciously, deliberately choose to practice showing growth mindset, then their team can really, really grow with them.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful points. I think this applies at home also. When we are working with our kids also, no? Uh,
Everywhere. If you look at mindset, I mean, Carol Dweck talks about it with children, right? If a child comes home with 100 out of 100, 90 out of 100 in math, do you say, good job, or you're do you say you're good, or do you say you practiced well, right? She talks about it with children. Yeah, works everywhere. Very
yeah,
true.
it
You're right.
works
You're right.
everywhere, and these are no, and they can also like shut down and open based on just the tone or the even the expression that you show, and that sets
Absolutely.
everything,
Absolutely. Very true.
right?
You're right.
So very beautiful. I think so one thing I always say, like it's like outside office or at home, whatever you teach, preach, you know, it should reflect in all areas, all spaces, wherever you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's in a way. I mean, we call it leadership, life skills. It's all the same. Yeah, applies everywhere. True.
So when these working professional becomes managers without any formal preparation, what are the three competencies every first time manager must build early?
Okay. Um, so it's a three, right? Magic number three,
Yeah.
not four. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I do a lot of first time manager workshops. I do certain senior leadership workshops also, but a lot of my 6 to 8 month engagement in a lot of organizations is first time manager. And that's kind of a niche I focus on a lot. Even my e learning course, there is
Mm,
one that says Managerial Excellence 101 that talks about first time manager programs, because I think that's the group that's just pushed over there. Matlab, one fine day, your boss will walk in and say, "Yeah, you've been working for so long. You're so good at what you do. Chal manager banja." Right? I mean, and that's how you end up starting, and they really, really learn by doing. They struggle over a period of time. Um, so I think from whatever I've heard from a lot of these first time managers talk to me, and in the facilitation of the various sessions that we have, the one and I think in some way we've already spoken about these three actually. If I look at what three come to my mind, the first one that always is a challenge is to delegate. Like I said, doer to enabler, Just delegate. I mean, in fact, a lot of first time managers think delegation means assigning work.
Hmm.
Lot more than that. It takes them a lot of time to come to the realization that it's not just assigning. Delegation is also a way to grow people, to help them learn. You can delegate stuff that they don't know how to do,
Yeah.
right? So I think delegation, what to delegate, what not to delegate, right? And how to delegate. I had once manager that said, like, I trust in my team, right? I mean, that's okay, but what about you have to be there, man? Otherwise, what's the whole point about you being there, right?
Hmm.
To believe in your team, but you need to have those little checkpoints, right? Now, but he says that, oh, no, 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 then they'll think I'm micromanaging. So that's why I tell them, have mutual checkpoints, right? Talk to your team member, when you want to do a checkpoint, have
Hmm.
mutual checkpoints. Because what happens is you'll go this extent, and so I trust in my team. One
Hmm.
thing will go fully wrong, and then zoop, you will go to this extreme, saying
Yeah.
everything you then try and then control, right? So somewhere that balance is something I believe managers, every manager or leader I've met has learned over time.
Yeah.
That with little bit of insights and training to just at least understand that competency, I think will help them shoot off a lot more faster. The second one again is about, I mean, point blank, we've spoken about growth mindset and receiving feedback, but one thing as a manager you're supposed to do is give feedback.
Yeah.
And this a lot of people I've seen struggle with, up until now. Sometimes you've been colleagues with this person till now, suddenly you're their manager, you got to give feedback. Now you want to be liked as a leader. This is a mistake most leaders make. They want to be liked. Okay,
Hmm.
good leaders are not liked, good leaders are respected, right? And so you hesitate in giving feedback, or
Hmm.
you give too blunt feedback.
Hmm.
After you tell it on their face and it sounds very harsh, or
Yeah.
you say it, you do wishy-washy and try to say, you know what, I'm not saying that it's so bad, but you know what, I see you beat around the bush and you don't know. Either ways, it's a problem. If you look at Kim Scott, she talks about radical candor in a book, right, where she says that you need to challenge your team while also caring personally. If you challenge a lot without caring personally, it's obnoxious aggression, according to her.
Hmm.
If you care too much but don't challenge them, it's ruinous empathy. But
Yeah.
it's that combination, she says, is radical candor. How do I give feedback? When should I give? Where should I give? Right? Okay, what do I give feedback on? Right? Not the individual, but the behavior, the actions. I think that's a competency you have to role plays, practice, mock sessions. You learn it only by doing it more and more, right?
Hmm.
So that's delegation, that's giving feedback. The third one, I think, is a big thing for a lot of organizations is decision making.
Hmm.
Up until then, somebody else has made decisions for you, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else has told you what's okay and what's not okay. You just had to do. Somebody else was deciding. Now, not only do you have to decide for yourself, but you have to decide for everybody else also, right? So, I mean, so many, in fact I've had so many founders when they've scaled their companies tell, man, Revati, how do I get these people to just, I don't care if they make a wrong decision, I just want them to get off their bum and move. That's what I want them to move. It's okay if you're moving in the wrong direction, but move, don't sit there, you're costing me a lot of money, right? I think there are a lot of reasons. They're probably, like I said, decision making capability is not trained. Or, there's a fear. What if I make a wrong decision? What if I cost the organization money? Because now you have to manage budget. You don't have that till now, right? And your risks are higher, your stakes are higher. So I think decision making, how do you go about it? The what are the traps you can avoid, what are the mindsets with which you can make decisions. I think this is one more competency. Of course there are a lot more. There's just
Yeah.
so many skills that come to being a manager and a leader. One of the most difficult things to do. Everybody wants to be a manager until they become a manager. They become a manager and then say, Arey Bhagwan, why did I become a manager? So yeah, but I think these are three critical competencies: learning how to delegate, learning how to give feedback, and learning the capability of decision making, right? I think
Wonderful.
that's definitely
Wonderful.
important.
So tell me a little bit about your programs, the workshops that you offer from your academy, and how do you help, or what is the range of your clientele, the experience, so that as people are listening to you right now,
Mhm.
they if they want to work with you, want to learn more, how do you help them? Maybe they would be interested to know.
Um, sure. Actually, so I do a lot of mostly B2B workshops a lot. I work with organizations in group first time manager facilitation as well as certain senior leadership programs. Certain clients come and talk about anything else in the area of leadership and managerial. Can you still do something? I do, right? So those
Mhm.
are mostly group workshops, which is one part of whatever that I do. I do a lot of large event programs, annual events. The largest group I've probably done a 2 hours facilitation workshop has been about 250 people, you know.
Wow.
So large events where actually engage them on certain facets and certain aspects. I'm a certified leadership coach, right? ICF certified, PCC, and also EMCC certified, and also certified in psychometric instruments, MBTI, Hogan, DISC. So I do a lot of one-on-one coaching in organizations for senior leaders, as well as I have a lot of entrepreneurs and as well as quite a few leaders. So I do these workshops in organizations, and some people come out and they say, "Hey, I would like to continue on your mentoring."
Hmm.
So, with people out over there or the entrepreneurs out over there, I do a lot of one-on-one leadership, etc. Uh, I have learnsprint.solutions.com. I have 3 sets of online courses. There's actually one that's about 16 hours with lots of practice for freshers, campus to corporate. And then there's one for individual contributors, and then there's one for first-time managers, right?
Wow.
So these are the 3 e-learning courses that I do run. So that's a little bit about what I do, mostly one-on-one coaching using psychometric instruments or in helping people reflect and grow. Group training and facilitation workshops. My niche is senior leadership and first time manager programs, but I've done other workshops on productivity, accountability, influencing, etc. And I have a few e-learning courses. I run a YouTube channel mostly aligned towards first-time managers, and now team members can talk to their managers, etc. It's
Mhm.
called the Rise with Revathi,
Mhm.
and that's something that people will get a lot of content in how what I believe in. Yeah.
Yes. And if somebody wants to, get in touch with you,
Mhm.
uh, because they may be watching this video, I don't
Mhm.
know which platform, but if they want, where are you the most active on social media so that they can connect with you?
Um, More than most active, I think one place that I usually ask people to reach out to me when they do the same in sessions is usually I have a TopMate account, I have a TopMate page, and
Mhm.
people usually can reach out to me over there. So it's a little tougher for the LinkedIn, YouTube, and all gets a little tough, but people can follow me on these places, LinkedIn and YouTube. But I have a TopMate account. I will be more than willing to share that with you if you can let me know where do I share that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and share that in the chat, and that's something that people can reach out with me. Yeah.
yeah. So, I could see from, as as you were speaking, like there are a lot of things that were coming from your experience, and since you have trained,
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from the space of training and
Mm-hmm.
on the coaching that you are already in for so many years. So,
Mm-hmm.
what would be your one piece of advice for leaders who want to build, meaningful careers? What would it be?
Um, okay. When you ask, it just reminds me of what we ask in training programs. At the end of a 2 days, 3 days workshop, we'll say, "What is one takeaway that you want?" And you know what? Now I'm realizing how difficult it is for them when you ask me what is one piece of advice, right? How do you just say one? But I think one thing for leaders actually works for individuals, but a lot more for leaders, especially because you're in a position of hierarchy and authority,
Yeah.
is consistent self awareness and learning, right? Okay. You
Mhm.
have to be a learning leader, constantly self aware. You have to keep reflecting and you
Mhm.
have to keep learning. Because the more senior that you get, it gets lonely at the top. Of course, you can always come to a coach like me,
Yeah.
right? And you can have someone like me to kind of, bounce off and soundboard on a regular basis, which is what quite a lot of my entrepreneurs clients do because it gets very lonely at the top once you have that. But um, but you still can't be there every single day for them, right? And much like the other teams, other managers, and the other places, you don't have a lot of peers to bounce off and to give you that feedback. So it's you got to be constantly self-aware, constantly reflecting, constantly learning, to be able to evolve as a leader at every stage. As your team keeps growing, teams keep evolving. If you're a founder, then as your work business keeps evolving, or if you're a leader in an organization, as the organization evolves, as projects evolve, I think you have to evolve. And you cannot do that unless and until you have that self awareness. You're willing to reflect. In fact, I tell a lot of the leaders and managers I coach to do a self reflection journal, right? Okay, I give them a little bit of a gist of, I give them a template if they want. Otherwise, I tell them to do a self reflection journal at the end of the day, saying, what did I learn as a leader? What was the strength today as a leader? Like we used to write happiness journals or gratitude journals. I asked them to write their leadership learning journal, because if you're not evolving constantly, if you're not aware of who you are becoming,
Hmm.
then tomorrow suddenly your team will look at you and you will end up having a reputation of somebody that you don't recognize. So I think that
Very powerful, very powerful. I
I
think
think
self-awareness is the key of, for every journey where you are looking at growth, you're looking at fulfilling on your goals. You know, it all starts with reflecting and being as your capacity to be aware of yourself and your surroundings. The more you can, and it's a muscle to be built over a period of time. Just keep investing.
everything has to be built over a period of time. Very
Yeah,
true. Very true.
yeah. And finally, to close this conversation, my final question: what does true excellence in leadership mean to you today?
I think there's so many ways to define that, but I think excellence in leadership is that if you build more leaders,
Hmm.
a lot of leaders like hesitate. I'll train this person, I'll coach them, I'll empower them, I'll mentor them, they'll learn everything, then they'll leave and go work for another company, right? So what? I mean, if you're building capability and if you're building leaders, whether they continue in your team or they move to another team or they move to another organization or they go start off on their own, right? I think that's how you sow the seeds for the greater future, right? So, I mean, excellence in leadership can be everything we've spoken about, to be honest. It can be self awareness, it can be doing all the competencies well, like delegation, right? Having growth mindset. I think if you consolidate everything that you've spoken about, that is excellence in leadership. But if
Yeah.
you would ask me one way to really to look at, how would you look at the impact, right? Excellence, matlab, there can be many, many definitions, but how will you know whether I'm creating the impact I need to as a leader is, are you building capability and are you building more leaders, right?
Mhm.
Irrespective of whatever. In fact, some of the most satisfied leaders I have seen talk about their proteges and their team members who've grown on and then become leaders in another further organizations, right? They still look up. They're on their own now. They don't even talk to this person that much and all of it, but the memory stays, right? Okay, and that they know that they've had a hand in growing them, which is which is what teachers also feel, right, in school, wherein I've actually created, because uh, you have people that are like CEOs of organizations and presidents and prime ministers of countries and great singers out over there, but to see a teacher in their formative years and that impact, I think that's excellence. Am I consciously? It's the mindset of, do I look at building more leaders? If you're
Yeah.
able to do that, then you're there. You're doing what you're supposed to do as a leader. Yeah.
Yes, very well said. Thank you so much, Revati, for this amazing tips and very, very enlightening. I would see you were speaking like a breeze. Not when we talk about leadership, management, these are very high, heavy, technical and very,
Mhm.
terms when it comes to, especially those who are listening from a space of aspiration, from a space of looking at growing in their career. No, it
Mhm.
looks heavy, but as you spoke it, I felt like a breeze. So I know, and it's when it's there in your DNA, like somebody who reads so many books, I can understand like how much you have it in you, and that's how with so much ease it is coming out. And
I think, but I think books definitely, yes, books give a lot of knowledge. It goes sit somewhere. But then I think I am who I am, and we're all continuously learning and growing. By the way, we all still have scenarios where you look back and then say, "Ah, I wish I had done it differently." But I think I am where I am because of the people that have mentored me, people
yeah,
who are willing to share what they've shared with me, people who are willing to,
yes,
be my coach, and then who probably shown me how things need to be. So I think that everything that we are right now is more because of who others have been for us, and
others could
that's
see it in us before we could, believe. We could really see that that's possible for us.
yeah.
That's a beautiful side of coaching and being a mentor, and and a mentee. You are a lifelong student. So thank you so much. I loved this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, take
Sure,
care.
Anjani. Thanks for having me, and it was great talking to you. Yeah, it's just over before like I could even know about it.
It just like felt like just 5 minutes.
I know it just got done. I can't believe we're 30 minutes into.
Yeah. Take care. Have
Bye.
a great evening. Bye
You too.
bye.
Bye. Take care.